All right, everyone. We've got still a few people jumping in, but in the nature of being conscious of everyone's time, I'd like to get started. So first off, welcome and thank you all for joining us from all around the country today for this week's episode of Pro Perspective, the insider's look at all things CRE. I'm your co-host, Robert Anderson, and currently the Director of Auction Services over at Crexi. For anyone not familiar with Crexi, we are the fastest growing online marketplace for commercial real estate and recently released our best-in-class auction offering. To date, we've closed over almost 120 million at a 65% sell-through rate over 5 auction events. So very successful start. We have the pleasure today sitting with us, Andre Cuadrado, our founder and principal at Rhenium Capital, a premier loan sale advisor in the Southeast. I've known Andre and his co-founder, Michael, for a long time as we worked together for a number of years at a competing platform and have become reacquainted these past few months since I joined Crexi. Andre is one of the best in the business, successfully executing close to 400 individual transactions. Good morning, Andre. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Not too bad, I guess, all things considered, doing the whole home quarantine office thing. Again, thanks for well, this almost feels like vacation, but it seems like my work hours are even longer. Go figure. We're a loan sale advisory firm. We sell assets for bank and non-bank lenders nationwide, primarily focusing on performing and non-performing loan sales. However, we do also sell some REO assets as well. Sold in, I believe, 15 or 16 states thus far. My expertise is in capital markets, loan sale transactions across all commercial real estate asset classes, including the specialty ones and multifamily, as well as residential, single-family rental, and even owner-occupied residential loan pools, and even some non-real estate secured loans such as judgments and deficiencies as well.
Awesome. Well, I think your background is quite timely right now with everything going on.
Yes, it is.
For all those joining us today, we'll be focusing on leveraging online platforms to market your assets and utilizing auctions when necessary. But also, based on Andre's background and the current environment, we are for a special treat as we will get in with some market commentary around, the distressed loan market. Heads up that during the presentation, feel free to ask questions. Just use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to those in as quickly as possible as we're going through things. All right, Andre, let's dive right into this. So, you've obviously sold a number of, non-performing and performing loans, whether it's conventional or auction. And, fortunately for Crexi, you've utilized us for a lot of those. What are some of the characteristics you look for when deciding to, against auction or deciding to auction a property versus selling it conventionally?
Yeah, this is a very, very timely pro perspective that you guys are throwing. Anybody that's on here, you need to stand at attention and listen to what's going on and take a look at what Crexi has as an offering for an auction solution, because it's going to make a lot of sense. And this ain't last cycle. So a couple things, we'll do either, conventional call for offers or we'll run auctions. It's kind of dependent on multiple items. Obviously beyond seller preference, one of the most important things is seller motivation. If you have a seller that's looking for liquidity, quickly, and surety of execution, auction solutions are absolutely pivotal to provide that for them in a timely and predictable manner. Especially now, we're going to be going into a situation where, I work with lenders. If there's any brokers on here, you're going to be working with clients who maybe need liquidity to put elsewhere. The auction function is definitely a very strong solution for that. It's going to be a timed event. It's going to be a hard contract. There's going to be bid deposits that are enforceable. Now really isn't the time to play the 90-day close and retrade game, especially if you have clients that are definitely looking for liquidity in short order. Couple things. Again, as Robert mentioned, we have a lot of past experience at a competitive platform, but, forget the platform. We have a lot of experience, and so does the Crexi team, in this environment specifically. We were basically tossed into the meat grinder, in 2010 on from the last recovery after basically a real estate debt collapse, right? So a lot of things have changed since then. Back then, I guess the auctions were assumed by the market as a way to sell small distressed crap, to be perfectly frank. Vacant gas stations with contamination, just whatever a bank or a seller needs to get off their books. But boy, has that changed over the past decade. Some of the largest individual transactions in the history of the internet have been real estate transactions through online auction platforms. And that's something you definitely need to consider. Now you can see deals, whether it's that vacant gas station in Mississippi that auctions for $20K, or it's a Class A office building with occupancy that sells, in downtown CBD, any major MSA, USA. Auctions are a viable option for that. I think the last thing we kind of look at to really, I guess, decide whether it's going to be an auction or a conventional sale would be the nature of your asset and the potential buyer pool that you have. We have, and I'll try to be very brief. I don't want to, run on too long, but we actually have a deal on Crexi right now. Yeah, we marketed it as a conventional sale because for the bank, it's an REO deal in rural Iowa, in Postville, Iowa, a town of 2,500 people. They did not want us to auction it at first. We were able to get an offer out of a blind call for offers, a little bit less than what they wanted, and they did accept it. However, that bidder is out of Los Angeles, and given the current lockdown and the potential for a closed borders travel ban, that kind of throws a monkey wrench in the system. And this goes back to the prevalence and use and importance of having an auction platform for surety of closure and execution. We would have at least locked him up with the earnest money deposit at this point. So we, maybe we could have figured something out for, force majeure acts of God. Hey, Black Plague of the 21st century, but we don't have that option, right? So now, we can go back to the number two guy. I doubt his pricing is going to be any better. We need to auction this property. It's 85% occupied. It's going to trade on a cap rate. Pricing discovery is, it's going to be there, and we're going to need to lock somebody in. So this is real time. Right now, it's on contract pending selection on Crexi. If we don't hear back from this buyer this week, then we're going to have to give them another option, and surety of execution leads us to want to auction this property.
There's some great info right there. So in the past, you've kind of talked to me about, auction feel, like it's got a feel to it.
Yes.
In my previous slide, a lot of people, would say a season listing really had the auction feel and not the traditional. Mm-hmm. But, I think you kind of think otherwise, that, fresh to market is, to kind of hit it, hit the ground running is where they go. Can you elaborate a little?
Oh, absolutely. Auction feel. Yeah. I mean, I just have a lot of experience with auctions, and you do as well. So obviously you can kind of tell when a deal hits that sweet spot. Now, season listings, here's the problem with only thinking of the season listings. It's the old teaching an old dog new tricks, right? And this is extremely relevant. Seller motivation. The market, while auctions are still growing and it's a great option, you still have plenty of older property holders that are used to the traditional listing, meaning, okay, I list it, the property's worth $1 million. I list it for $2 million, and then, we have it on the market for 12 more months. Okay, so if the property's been on the market for 24 months, is that a solution? Well, tell that to your seller. Your seller is not going to want to take a reserve that's going to motivate the market most of the time. Sometimes they do if they need liquidity, like maybe now, but it's a number of things. I mean, I would have happily taken that this auction field deal with a motivated seller with a good price in Postville, Iowa, to auction first. They just weren't convinced. It's a seller that's a bit set in his ways for a rural bank in Iowa, and he wanted to do it the way that he is familiar with. You
touched on an interesting point. A lot of it's seller kind of, you can advise them, but the sellers, ultimately made the decision. George from Idaho
Yes.
just kind of chimed in and wants to know, how do you go about establishing the pricing of an auction, in particular when it's not a bank-owned asset? Like, what are some of the tactics you use?
Well, that's kind of funny, and this is something that you can attest to. At the previous auction competitor, I actually founded and ran the valuations and advisory department there. We underwrote over 10,000 assets in a matter of 4 years, determining where recommending reserves. So I'm a lender. I'm not a broker by trade. I'm a lender. I just, I feel like Bane. I was born in the darkness, right? So look, you have to figure out what the property is actually worth. And here's I guess my secret sauce, which I recommend to any brokers that are trying to convince a seller. If you look at Christie's auction, they auction boats, they auction artwork, they will auction some real estate. The way they determine a reserve is they have an appraiser value, let's say the painting, right? They have an appraiser value the painting, and then they require the seller to commit to sell at 15% less than what that painting's actually worth. Now, it's a very large step in logic for real estate where everyone's used to listing it for way more than the property's worth and getting beat down over time until you decide where the pricing is. But it motivates the market to compete. And this is why on these Christie's auctions, why on the news you're seeing, oh, this banana that's taped to a wall in South Beach just sold for $33 million because they sell it at a reserve technically lower than what the value is, because you have to motivate the market. And there's certain folks that utilize absolute auctions only, meaning, hey, if somebody bids $1, you have to take it. And we do something very similar ourselves for our loan sales called any cash offer, meaning you have to take this is any cash offer I get you to get it sold, because some of these deals are so tough. I mean, vacant assisted living facility in East St. Louis with a roof caving in that's probably haunted. You ain't setting a reserve. The market has to set pricing, and if you have a seller that's not willing to sell it at a reasonable price, you need to pass on that, because they're going to be back. Because what's another 24 months of listing, especially in a liquidity crunch.
You're kind of the opposite of Wayne Gretzky. You don't want to take every shot. You need to let some pass.
Absolutely not.
Well, thank you for that, George. I hope that answered your question. So Andre, obviously you and Michael are one of the more active. You're a loan sale advisor, but kind of a broker on the platform, using the Crexi to sell and help assist in your deals. Can you kind of walk through one of your more recent, experiences on the platform?
Wow. I mean, we list all of our assets on Crexi, and thanks for pulling this up. This deal right here, and I see Sean McDonald asked a question: what are the tools in reach of Crexi's marketing? If we go, let me walk you through this one real quick, Sean, and then if we can go to the back end, I can kind of show you what kind of traction that we received on this deal. Now, unfortunately, with this deal, let me go to the details. This is a performing and non-performing single-family rental bridge loan sale being sold by basically SFR and hard money lender out of Texas. It's about half performing, half not. Oh, it's more non-performing than performing. So, initially, our initial plan for marketing this was to market it as one single pool, because this deal makes a lot of sense for a similar lender to buy, or splitting it into performing and non-performing, because real estate investors will purchase non-performing, and another similar lender or a fund who just wants to get the 10% rate will probably buy it for 95 cents on the dollar. Unfortunately, during marketing, COVID-19 happened, and a lot of the larger funds don't want to put any money out right now because the market's too volatile. A lot of these guys securitize these performers on the back end, and who knows what they're going to be able to do, right now. So we're on pause for this sale right now. It was initially a call for offers. Now we have it as an open listing, and what we're going to do is actually recommend to the seller to split this deal into regional pools, probably just for the non-performers, but also possibly for the performers.
Yeah.
And Michael Fine asked me, how do I handle licensing in all of these states? That's actually an interesting question. There are no licensing requirements for loan sales whatsoever because I'm selling the paper, not the properties.
Yeah, no, and Andre, real quick before we get into Sean's question and the leads and kind of like the utilizing the marketing, Drew was asking.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're gonna carve these up into non-performing and performing. How does the due
Yes.
diligence process work in contingencies when you maybe move on to the auction? Is it all as is, where is? Is everything done up front? Can you just elaborate a little?
Everything's as is, where is. Typically, a loan sale closes we try to get them closed in 7 days or less. Sometimes there's exceptions where there is a due diligence period. We made very, very few exceptions.
Okay.
I guess it's really dependent on the deal, but for the most part,
Yeah. So mostly.
it's no contingencies, as is, where is.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So let's dive into Sean's. I think you said he kind of had some questions on the marketing aspect, right?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, we utilize Crexi's tools, and Crexi actually also offers email marketing directly from their system. So we can put our leads in the e-blast for the people that we know would be interested in this. Like for instance, again, we have a pool of hard money lenders that we know will buy a performing loan pool. So we will put them in the campaign system, and we can blast them out and send them basically directly to Crexi. Now, Crexi also, we do get leads. Like if you want to click on that one right there, view details right there. This was actually sent by Crexi to folks in their system that are interested in our deal. And if you go up to, so it's all the same. Just FYI, guys, it's 3 listings. We have the whole listing and then the performers, and separate from the non-performers, just because the buyer profiles are different. But if you go up, there you go. They sent it to 3,400 people, delivered to 3,300. 17% open rate and a 12% click-through rate. I'm not sure if you're familiar with click-throughs and open rates, generally speaking, but those are really strong numbers, and we did get a really big push of CAs and OMs executed based on that.
Yeah, and then you'll notice the abridged version down here too in the dashboard as well.
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, I think that, I don't know if there's any more questions on the marketing side of things, but it's pretty interesting how you said that, you had this, this pool out there, and what you thought was a good time to be marketing, and all of a sudden, like all of us, kind of got blindsided by the COVID crisis and the work from home and kind of lack of travel. So with your background, can you just kind of maybe elaborate a little bit on what you're seeing in the market? Like, what are your clients telling you outside of this? I'm assuming that you've probably been fielding a ton of phone calls in the last 10 days.
It's kind of funny, even it's kind of funny, even as we were chatting a little bit before this. One of my major institutional clients, who probably should have sold a specific deal with me months ago, just signed it up with me just now because the music just stopped. So guys, everybody, listen to this. This is really interesting. I'm a counter-cyclical business primarily. Sure, we do fine on the upside. We can sell performing loans, but we get most of our business during an economic downturn, and we're kind of ready for it. So I've been fielding a bunch of calls from sellers and from buyers over the past couple of weeks, as we languish away in our home prisons.
Hey man,
this is what.
Not that bad.
Well, hey man, I'm not overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge like you are, dude.
Hey, everyone needs a view in their life. One thing I think this
is what I'm telling people. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I the other day when we were catching up last week about this, you kind of used an analogy of 2001 versus 2008.
Yes.
I think the part everyone
this is exactly what I'm telling people.
Might want to kind of hear that, because it was pretty interesting, I thought.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm telling everybody, because what I get from sellers is there any liquidity in the market? And what I'm getting from buyers is, oh, there's tons of deals. You guys are seeing tons of deals. Send me some deals, right? Like, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? What are you seeing? This is what I'm hearing. And this is what I'm telling them, is 2001, I was in the Army, and 2008, I was at I was at a life company lender. So it really is a difference between 2001, 2008. And this is where I elaborate. 2001, massive shock to the system. Nobody knew what was going to go on. A lot of things were closed. Airports were closed. Courts were closed. Nobody wanted to go into Sears Tower, obviously. Nobody knew what was going on. But it was a relatively quick recovery after that, right? It wasn't anything specifically systemic that caused that tragedy to happen and the economy to recover after that. 2008 was a financial crisis. It was a systemic crisis, specifically with real estate debt, with mortgage-backed securities and commercial mortgage-backed securities. So yes, if I was in business as Rhenium Capital back in 2008, I probably would have been fielding a lot of calls and underwriting a lot of deals in the pipeline. This is somewhere between those. This is like a slow-moving 2001 right now that can turn into 2008. Right now, I mean, rent's due today. Right? Rent's due today across the country. And there's a lot of varying things going on. Again, I'm nationwide. I look at a lot of stuff. Certain municipalities are doing certain things. So the big call for real estate to kind of stand up and pay attention was Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, moratorium on foreclosures. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, moratorium on evictions if you have their loan, right? But they will restructure, the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac multifamily loan, if you do not, I think it's an automatic forbearance if you do not evict any tenants that do not pay rent. That's one thing. It's really important to pay attention to. San Francisco. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just on that. You said, so obviously those are three large government agencies that put on, the debt and all that. Do you see the government also bailing out the private sector like they did in 2008, or is there going to kind of be the haves and have-nots, which are the government agency, groups, and then the non, and they're going to let the private sector maybe work out like the RTC days?
This feels a little bit more like RTC. Honestly, it feels like it could turn into something a lot more like RTC. But the really interesting thing here is the Sba bailout, right? That's very different. That's actually Germany rolled out a similar plan back after 2008. So even though they had the same type of financial issues that the rest of the world did, employment actually went up slightly because they basically paid their small businesses to keep people on board. And this matriculates to the whole economy, right? Because small businesses.
Real quick, Andre, is this the like 350 billion that was like tagged to help bridge that gap? It's like 8 weeks with small businesses under 500 employees. So that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And it's very significant. I mean, because look, right now we don't know what's going to happen. I think the first major national tenant has filed, has stated we're not paying rent, based on force majeure acts of God, which is going to be in everybody's commercial lease, right? So now what? So now what? Now what happens? Yeah. So here's the thing. So the way we're looking at it at Rhenium is, okay, moratorium on foreclosures, force majeure clauses. No one's going to see REO because a lot of people are going to want to sell the stuff as loans. I mean, if you need liquidity, you're going to want to sell the notes. So, so right now we.
Yep, go ahead. I think you touched on what I was going to go at. You go ahead with right now.
Yeah, so we don't know yet. Like, look, we don't know. Like, if nobody knows where this is going and how much longer this is going to be. Nobody knows the peak. Nobody knows how much longer we're all going to be in lockdown, and nobody knows how everybody's going to react to it. But I tell you what, we're in a recession now. We are. It's undeniable. It's undeniable. And this is why I'm telling everybody to any brokers here, stand up and pay attention. And any owners here, the peak's gone. The peak's way back there, and it ain't coming back, right? So if you're looking for liquidity, I definitely recommend considering selling. And this is another thing too. This is another thing, and I think we touched on this, but I do want to focus on this. We marketed that deal as a pool because if COVID-19 never happened, we'd have already sold that deal. And that's not the only deal we're having the issues with. You know who still was out there who wants to buy? The Philadelphia investor that just wants to buy the 6 Philly assets. He still has the cash. He still wants to buy. We have another deal, a loan pool.
And so can we wait, real quick, let me jump in there. So on that note, like, would you use Crexi to help to divide out that pool and let you kind of market it all individually? And so that's kind of one of the advantages of an online platform?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, hey, we already did it once. We marketed it as one, then we split it to performing, non-performing using Crexi. Our next step is to use Crexi to split it out even further to regional pools. We think we can have success based on, because you guys you showed everybody the CAs and OMs. I talk to a lot of those people. I do weekly reports for my lenders to let them know where the market's coming in. And I have buyers that just want the individual regional pools, but it's just not an option for them to purchase them right now. So we're going to have to talk to them about, hey, this is the best option if you want to sell this stuff. And we're going to just take it right back on Crexi and utilize that functionality. It's very easy. It's extremely easy, the user experience on Crexi. I mean, this is why we put all our listings there.
That's awesome. And I think just for the listeners out there, one of the interesting thing is, Andre's had success in this, but, he can market at the same time that out of that pool, he can divide some of those and market them as an auction, some of them as a conventional sale. So, the online platform, I think, Andre's proven can make it, extremely accessible, especially when you're trying to reach people outside of your market. Now, back to your earlier comment about, the moratorium on foreclosures, the SBA, funding the bridge. So it sounds like you think we're kind of just in a wait and see period for the next 2 to 3 months. Put on, as we've only got a couple minutes left, I've just asked maybe put on, your genie hat and get that crystal ball going and see, like, where do you see things in the fourth quarter?
There's even if it's a relatively quick recovery, there's some overpriced assets and over-leveraged assets are going to shake loose. There's no way around it. And the bellwether for loan sales, and actually I'll tell you, the bellwether for loan sales, and I guess the economy in general, limited service hotels. That's the absolute bellwether for loan sales. When the limited service hotel loans start going bad, that's when we're on our way to, I guess, maybe possibly a greater liquidation event. And the reason being is obviously they have to sell their beds every night, but they are the most highly leveraged businesses out there. They're usually 85% leveraged plus, so they're very, very sensitive to any economic changes. They have, they always have a bank first loan, and then an SBA 7A second on top of that, and then sometimes a third loan just on the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And so some of these things are over 100%. And if they start losing, people aren't traveling, right? I don't want to travel right now. And I don't think I couldn't buy the 10 bottles of Lysol that I'd want to spray a hotel room down, even if I had to travel, because it's all sold out. But, that's going to affect their revenues first and foremost. And that's going to be kind of, the big thing that shakes loose. So it's really, honestly, I love prognosticating. I mean, my whole business is based on a bet and prognostication that
so you're saying watch the limited service. We got
watch limited service hotels.
Limited service.
Yes.